I knew they were planning to get rid of me even before the phone buzzed. It was the silence that told me. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses in like fog, too thick and too quiet to be natural. It had settled over the lake, on the trees, on the roof of my trailer like a warning I couldn't name. And then the screen lit up in the dark. Just one text, just one whisper from inside my own bloodline, and the whole thing came crashing down. Grandpa, don't say anything. Just listen. It's about tomorrow. They're coming to take you away. I stared at the message, breath locked in my throat. Not from fear, not even shock, but recognition. I'd felt this kind of betrayal before, in a truck stop parking lot outside of El Paso in '83. But that was business. This was blood. The message was from Noah, my grandson, 12 years old, smart beyond his years, a little too serious for a kid, like he'd already seen the world crack open once or twice. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. Then came another message, fast. Mom and Dad have bags packed. I saw a route on Mom's phone to some clinic. Dad called it a holding place. They said it's time for you to be evaluated, that they'll take care of the house after. I didn't move, didn't blink. Just let that truth settle like mud in the bottom of a glass. Another ping. Ava's crying. They told us not to say anything. Promised us new phones and a puppy if we kept quiet. I couldn't. I'm sorry. I read that last line 3 times. I'm sorry. Like the boy was the one betraying someone. Like standing up for his own grandfather was the sin. Out past the porch, the lake was black glass, still, cold, watching. I leaned forward and set the phone down on the edge of the table, slowly, carefully, like it might explode. My fingers curled around the chipped ceramic mug in front of me. The tea was cold, untouched. I wasn't thirsty anymore. They were coming for me. And not just for me, for everything. This trailer, this land, this slice of lakefront that I carved out with calloused hands and 35 years behind a diesel engine. They weren't trying to help. They were trying to erase. I stood up, slow, my knee letting out a sharp crack that made me wince. That old injury never healed right. I walk with a cane now. Not that I ever let anyone see me struggle. That's the trick. You show them the limp, and they start planning how to carry you out. I shuffled over to the corner cabinet, pulled open the drawer, moved past the napkins and expired cough drops. There it was, the metal lockbox. I hadn't opened it in a while. Years, maybe. Inside, $200 in cash, a flash drive, my old Ruger 357, still clean, still loaded, and a worn black notebook with the word trust scribbled on the inside cover in Helen's handwriting. My late wife. She always said to be ready. Always. I took the flash drive and slipped it into my pocket, closed the box and stared out the window again. That's when it hit me. They really think I'm done. Erin, my daughter, the one I paid through nursing school, the one who used to fall asleep in the back of my rig during long hauls. Blake, her husband, a walking haircut with a real estate license and teeth too white to trust. They'd decided the old man wasn't useful anymore, that I was better off tucked away in some rehab center while they cleaned the place out and signed the paperwork with a smile. Maybe they even had champagne chilling. But they forgot one thing. I may be old, but I ain't blind, and I sure as hell ain't dead yet. The phone buzzed again. Noah, just act normal tomorrow. They said they're bringing coffee and pizza. They think you'll just agree to stuff. If you say no, they'll get help. I smiled at that, a dry, humorless smile that didn't reach my eyes. Get help, meaning force, meaning lies, meaning power of attorney and some poor doctor pressured into signing a declaration about my mind. It's funny how the people closest to you always mistake your silence for weakness, I typed back. Me. You did the right thing. I love you. Just stay close tomorrow. Stay quiet. There was no sleep that night. I brewed coffee, let it burn on the tongue, sat in the same chair Helen used to sit in, the one with the frayed cushion and the smell of cedar. I watched the shadows move across the lake like slow thoughts. Thought about my old trucking days. Thought about how many times I'd been underestimated. How many times I'd played dumb just long enough to let someone hang themselves with the rope they brought. I thought about Erin and where she went wrong. And I thought about tomorrow. Because tomorrow, they'd be showing up with smiles and fake concern, and maybe a clipboard or two. And when they did, I'd be ready. They arrived at 9:43 a.m. sharp. Not early enough to seem frantic, not late enough to seem rude, just the kind of timing that screams planned, like they practiced it. I was sitting on the porch, same chair as always, cane leaning against the railing, coffee in hand, newspaper open but unread. I'd been waiting, but I didn't want to look like I was waiting. That's an art form, you know, looking relaxed when your gut's already coiled like barbed wire. The gravel popped under their tires. Blake's black SUV, spotless and smug. Erin was in the passenger seat. The kids were in the back, but I could already tell from the way they didn't jump out that something wasn't right. Blake was first out. Khakis, buttoned down, loafers with no socks, like he was headed to brunch with a contract in his back pocket. Erin followed, arms full of coffee trays and a pizza box from Frankie's. My favorite. How thoughtful. "Dad," she said with that rehearsed brightness that people use on dementia patients. "We brought breakfast." "Sure looks like it," I said, not smiling. "Where's the mimosa?" She chuckled, a little too loud. Blake glanced toward the house, probably already checking sight lines, thinking about where the safest place was to sit me down and start pushing papers. I looked toward the SUV. Noah and Ava sat in the back, still buckled. Noah's eyes locked on mine. A slight nod. Ava, poor girl, was staring at her hands like they might break if she looked away. They didn't want to be here. Not for this. "Come on up," I said. "Coffee smells like actual coffee. That's new." Erin flinched. Good. That meant she still had a conscience. They followed me up the steps. Blake holding that shiny little briefcase like it held the cure for cancer. Erin set the coffee down on the table and opened the pizza box with a flourish like she was revealing a damn birthday cake. "Extra pepperoni," she said, smiling. "Just like you like it." I took a slice. Not because I wanted it, my stomach was a rock, but because I needed the image. Grandpa, old and relaxed, eating his pizza like he didn't know a coup was underway. Blake sat across from me, legs crossed, one ankle over his knee, his sockless foot bouncing like a metronome. He waited for Erin to sit before he spoke. "So, Walter," he began, using my first name like he always did when he was trying to assert control. "We've been talking, Erin and me, and we wanted to check in on you." I chewed my bite. Let the silence thicken. He hated silence. Blake was the kind of man who needed to control the tempo of a room or he started to sweat. "Check in on me," I said finally. "You drove 40 minutes with pizza and notaries to check in on me?" Erin winced. Blake grinned. He wasn't used to people playing his game better than him. "It's just..." Erin leaned in. "We've been thinking a lot about your health lately. The knee, the isolation, the fall last year. We just want to make sure you're safe." "There it is," I muttered, setting the plate down. "And here I thought you just missed me." "Come on, Dad. Don't be like that." I'm just curious how a medical evaluation and a trip to a facility helps me stay safe in my own home. That froze the air. Blake's mouth opened slightly, then shut. He wasn't expecting me to say it outright. That was my move. Pull the curtain back before they even get a chance to set the stage. Erin spoke quickly, her voice cracking. We talked to a doctor. He said it might be a good idea to get a basic assessment, for peace of mind. Whose peace? I asked. No answer. Ava came up the steps then, quietly. Noah followed. They sat on either side of me like little shadows, like they needed to be close. Noah reached for my hand under the table. I let him. Blake cleared his throat. The briefcase came up onto the table like it had its own entrance music. We actually brought a few documents, he said. Nothing official, just options. Just in case you wanted to look at some ways to make your life easier. Options. That word again. It's always options when what they really mean is, we've already decided for you. He opened the case and slid out a stack of papers. Not too thick, not too legal, just enough to lull someone not paying attention. Here's a simple POA. This would just allow us to handle a few minor things for you while you're recovering. Recovering from what? Well, if you do go in for rehab, just for a bit, it'll be easier for us to pay bills, handle any issues with the land. There it was. The land. I reached for my cane, not to stand, just to make sure they saw it. Saw I wasn't frail, wasn't leaving, wasn't signing a damn thing. Erin placed a second document in front of me. This one's just an early transfer proposal. Nothing binding. Just lets us explore interest from a potential buyer. Nothing's been promised. Lies wrapped in warmth. Like honey on a hook. Let me guess, I said, tapping the paper. The buyer's local. A friend of a friend. Maybe someone you've already talked numbers with? Erin blushed. Blake stiffened. You don't have to decide today, Blake said smoothly. There's actually a mobile notary in town right now, just in case. Just in case. Another phrase that means we're hoping you're weak enough to cave by lunch. I leaned back, folded my arms, and stared at them both. Well, this has been charming, I said, but I think I've had enough of people trying to help me. Dad, Erin began, her voice softening. Please. I'm not signing a damn thing today, I said, not raising my voice, just making it heavier. Not for a doctor, not for rehab, not for you. I may limp, but my mind's still sharp enough to see what's going on here. Noah's grip on my hand tightened. Erin sat back like I'd slapped her. Blake quietly slid the papers back into the briefcase, but his jaw was tight. He'd misjudged me. They both had. Coffee's getting cold, I said. Might as well enjoy it, while it lasts. They didn't say much after that. The air had shifted. I'd refused the script, and I could see it. The calculation behind Blake's eyes, already flipping to plan B. Let him. Because what they didn't know, not yet, was that my plan had already begun. They left around 11:30 a.m. Blake made a joke on the way out about bringing donuts next time. Erin gave me a long hug that felt more like a goodbye than a see you soon. The kids didn't say much. Ava looked like she wanted to cry. Noah just held my gaze the whole time like he was silently asking, "Did you see what I saw?" I did. And I saw more. After they drove off, the trailer went quiet again. I stood in the doorway for a while, watching the dust settle from Blake's SUV kicking up the gravel. He didn't drive like someone who had failed. He drove like someone still expecting to win, like someone who thinks he's got time. They didn't press too hard today. That worried me more than if they had, because that meant something was already moving behind the scenes. I finished my coffee, poured out the rest, and walked around the house just to move. My knee barked at me like always. But I didn't care. My head was buzzing, not with fear, not even anger anymore. Just focus. I needed to think, needed to see the angles. I walked out back toward the old tool shed. I hadn't touched it in weeks, maybe longer. The door groaned like it always did, and I stepped into the warm, musty air. The dust hit me like a wall. The smell of old oil, cedar, and rusted metal filled the space like time hadn't moved. I grabbed the old push broom to knock down a cobweb, and that's when I saw it. A folder on the workbench, half tucked beneath an empty paint can. Not mine. I didn't leave it there. It was one of those manila folders you buy in packs of 50, thick, creased at the edges. My name wasn't on it. No label, no note. Just a faint coffee ring on the corner like someone had set their drink down without thinking. I opened it. What I saw made my hands go cold. First page. A letter of intent from a company I'd never heard of. Some slick developer group out of Dallas. Fancy logo in the header, bolded legal text beneath. At the bottom, a signature line, unsigned, and a bold closing date, 2 weeks from today. Second page, a color-printed concept rendering. Aerial view of a planned community, streets, lots, sidewalks, a clubhouse near the lake. It looked like one of those fake postcards they hand out at real estate expos. Clean, clinical, sterile. And there, right in the middle of it all, my land, marked in red ink, a big square labeled Key Acquisition Must Secure. I kept flipping, page after page, meeting notes, a draft option agreement with blank spaces for seller name and title transfer. A short email printout from Blake's Gmail account to someone named Michael Reese. Senior Acquisitions, Clearfront Group. The tone was casual. Too casual. My father-in-law owns the land. He's isolated. We can make this happen quickly once we have POA. I'll get him evaluated for cognitive decline. That'll open the door. I sat down on the edge of the workbench, breathing slow. The rest of the folder felt like a roadmap to betrayal. Another sketch, this one hand-drawn, showed my lot, the lake, and a narrow path leading directly to the water line, labeled in red. Private lake access required, no deal without. That's what this was about. Not just the trailer, not just the land, the water. They needed my shoreline to unlock the entire development plan. That's why they were pushing. That's why it had to happen now. No delays, no resistance, no time for me to catch on. Just shove the old man into a facility, get the POA signed under stress, sell the land clean, and collect their cut. I held the folder in my lap like it was made of acid. Blake must have dropped it here during the last visit, maybe while checking the shed for some excuse to help clean up. Maybe Aaron saw it too, maybe not. Didn't matter. What mattered was that now I knew, and now I had proof. I got up slowly, legs stiff, and carried the folder back to the trailer like it was loaded. Inside, I laid everything out on the dining table and took photos of every page with my phone. Then I loaded it all onto the flash drive and slipped it back into my pocket. The original documents I put into a lockbox, stashed under the false bottom of Helen's old chest near the bedroom. I knew what to do next. I sat back down in the kitchen, staring at the lake through the window. Wind rippled across the surface like something waking up beneath it. It was a good metaphor. They thought I was asleep, out of the game, ready to be tucked away and forgotten. But they forgot who they were dealing with. I'm a man who spent his life hauling freight across this country. I've survived winter roads in Montana, black ice in Kansas, con artists at truck stops, and 2 damn hernias before I turned 50. I didn't just get old, I got sharp. They had 2 weeks, and so did I. But they wouldn't be easy weeks. Not with people like this. Not with family who smiled while sharpening knives behind your back. I looked at the clock. Almost time for the kids to come by. Noah and Ava always rode their bikes over around 4:30. Blake and Aaron thought it was innocent, harmless. They liked the space, the lake, Grandpa's stories. They didn't know I'd just stumbled across a war map, and I had every intention of fighting back. They came like clockwork, Noah and Ava on their bikes, cutting across the gravel path like two streaks of freedom. I heard the squeak of their brakes before I saw them. Noah with his chin lifted in that way that said, "I've got something to say," and Ava behind him, silent, her ponytail catching in the wind like a frayed flag. I didn't wave, didn't smile. I just nodded once toward the river trail, a narrow footpath that runs along the edge of the property, through the brush and down to where the lake curls into a quiet bend, a place where nobody ever goes, a place where we could talk without a single pair of ears. They dropped their bikes near the porch and followed me, their shoes crunching dry twigs and dead leaves. No questions, no games. Ava stayed close behind me, like she was scared someone might pull her back if she strayed too far. The three of us walked that narrow trail in silence, like we were heading into something holy. Down by the bend, I stopped. There's a fallen tree there that serves as a makeshift bench. I sat first. My knee hated the slope, but I didn't care. Ava sat beside me. Noah stood. He looked at me the way grown men do when they've done something they know they can't undo. "I'm sorry," he said, just like he'd written. "I know I shouldn't have gone through her phone, but I had to." I didn't answer, just waited. He swallowed hard. "They were fighting. Yesterday, after we got back from school. They thought we were outside, but I forgot my math binder. I heard them in the kitchen." "What were they saying?" He looked at Ava. She was staring at the water like it held answers. Then he looked at me again. "Mom said you weren't going to sign, that you were getting suspicious. Dad said it didn't matter, that if you didn't cooperate, they'd take you in for evaluation anyway. A short stay. 2 weeks. He said it like he was reading off a teleprompter in his head. "Then they'll use that to get power of attorney," he said. "Sign everything. The land, the trailer, the water line. Sell it to some company. I think the deal's already happening." I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. He kept going. "Dad said they'd tell the notary you were unfit to understand legal documents, that if you refused, they'd use the doctor's report as backup. Mom kept asking, 'What if he fights it?' And Dad said..." He stopped. "What did he say, Noah?" Noah took a shaky breath. He said, "If he pushes back, we'll make it 2 weeks in rehab. Let the paperwork go through without him. He'll calm down once it's done." Ava finally spoke. Her voice was small, but sharp. "He said you wouldn't even know what happened until you were already out of the house." I looked at them both. 2 kids. Brave, terrified, loyal in a way that cuts deep. They didn't owe me this. They could have kept quiet, gotten their puppy, their shiny new phones, and pretended none of it touched them. But they didn't. Noah opened his jacket then, pulled out a folded napkin, smoothed it out on his knee, and handed it to me. On it, in sharp pen strokes, were numbers, coordinates, letters, and dates. "What's this?" It was on the corner of Mom's desk. Looked important. "I think it's part of the sale. There's a date circled, 2 Fridays from now. A time, noon." That matched the closing date from the folder I found. I folded the napkin, slipped it into my pocket, and stared out at the water. My reflection stared back. Older, sure, but not broken. Not yet. "How much do you know about trusts?" I asked quietly. Noah blinked. "Like legal trusts?" "Yeah, property, Estate planning, that kind of thing. He shrugged. Not really. I mean, we learned about wills and stuff in civics class, but good, I said. That means they probably don't know I've got one. I didn't tell them everything. Not yet. Not the parts about Helen's friend, the documents I'd already started preparing, or the lakefront loophole I was going to use like a landmine. But I did tell them this. They're planning to rob me, I said calmly. And they're doing it with smiles and signatures. But they forgot something. What's that? Ava whispered. I've been planning too. Noah's eyes widened a little, not in fear, in understanding. You're going to stop them? I'm going to do more than that, I said. I'm going to beat them at their own game. We sat there a while longer. The wind stirred the leaves around our feet. A pair of herons took off from across the bend, wings wide, catching the last of the afternoon light. You two didn't deserve to be in the middle of this, I said. Noah shook his head. We're already in it. We just didn't know what it was before. I reached over, squeezed his shoulder, then looked at Ava. You've got a good heart. Don't ever let anyone trade it for a bribe. She nodded. They stood to leave. No more phones, I told Noah. If you have something urgent to say, you come here, on foot, understand? Got it. And don't mention this to anyone, not your parents, not your teachers, no one. He looked me in the eye. I won't. They left the same way they came, quiet, fast, and brave. I watched them go until they disappeared past the trees, then pulled the napkin back out and unfolded it again. The coordinates were too specific for a guess. This wasn't just a deal in motion. It was practically done. But they were rushing. That was their weakness. People only push this fast when they're scared of losing the window, which meant somewhere they were already running out of time. They just didn't know why. Yet. I made 2 calls that night. Not to lawyers, not to the sheriff, not yet. The first call was to Helen's oldest friend, the one person in town who still answered the phone like she expected trouble to be on the other end. Her voice crackled through the line with that familiar mix of warmth and readiness. Walter Green, she said, I figured you were either dead or in the mood for bourbon. Neither, I said, but I'm getting close to one of them. She chuckled. Which one? Depends how the next 2 weeks go. That shut her up, not from fear, from focus. Her name is Helen Mayfield, used to be a regional bank manager before retirement, spent 30 years protecting families from the same kind of backroom schemes I was staring down now. She's the kind of woman who never kept her money in just one place and never let anyone talk her into signing something without reading the back page. I told her what I'd found. Not everything. Just enough. She didn't gasp, didn't say, oh my God. She just asked one question. How fast do you need it done? 3 days, I said. Maybe 2. I'll call Caleb. Who's Caleb? My nephew, a state attorney in Tyler. Smart, quiet, knows how to bury a land transfer where no developer can dig it out. I felt something loosen in my chest. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was just the feeling of finally having a damn plan. He'll come by first light, she said. I'll pick him up myself. True to her word, they arrived by 8 a.m. the next morning. Caleb was younger than I expected. Late 30s, early 40s, wore a denim jacket and work boots instead of a suit. I liked him immediately. I don't believe in trusts, I said flatly as we sat at the table. He smiled. Neither do most people, until they need one. What I need is a wall they can't knock over. You're thinking irrevocable? I'm thinking fortress. He pulled out a laptop, opened a folder already labeled Green Trust. No hesitation, no lecture, just quiet competence. Here's what we built in 72 hours. 1. An irrevocable trust, filed under the name of Green Family Trust, with Noah and Ava listed as sole beneficiaries. The land, the trailer, and any personal property attached to the parcel were included. The trustee? Helen. You trust her? Caleb asked. With my life, I said. And my land? He nodded. Good enough for me. 2. A new deed transfer, clean, notarized, and recorded at the county clerk's office that afternoon. By sundown, the land was no longer in my name. It was part of the trust. Untouchable, legally sealed. Anyone who pulled the record would see it. 3. A durable power of attorney and healthcare proxy, executed in favor of Helen. That meant if someone else came in waving a fake POA, like Aaron or Blake, it would be ignored. Only Helen had the authority to act on my behalf now, and only with proof of incompetence from 2 doctors. That's where the genius of it all lived, because I wasn't incompetent. I was just quiet, and quiet people can't be declared unfit without someone noticing. 4. A formal complaint, drafted and sent to the county sheriff's department. Not an accusation, not a lawsuit, just a report. A well-worded document expressing concern over potential undue influence and attempted financial coercion. It included dates, names, the LOI, the emails, and the route Noah had found on Aaron's phone. A polite warning shot. And finally, we set the bait. 5. The Lakeshore Strip. A narrow, overlooked slice of property that had been deeded separately back in the 80s when I first bought the land. I'd never used it for anything but a canoe rack and a fish cleaning table. We intentionally left it out of the trust. Let them believe they still had a path to the water. Let them think that if they got me to crack, they could still squeeze the deal through. You're playing a dangerous game, Caleb said as he saved the files to 3 separate encrypted USB drives. You sure you want to push it this far? I'm not pushing, I said. They are. I'm just making sure I'm not the one who falls. We locked 2 copies in my safe. The 3rd went into Helen's purse, sealed in a double envelope. Where are you keeping the originals? She asked. In the shed, I said. Under the bait box. Let them find it if they go snooping again. By the time they left, the sun was starting to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the lake like warning fingers. The air was still, heavy with late summer heat and the buzz of crickets. I stood on the porch with a fresh cup of coffee and watched the road. I knew what came next. The real pressure. The performance. The moment where they'd try one last time to make me feel like the crazy one. Like I was imagining it all. Like they were just trying to help. And I'd play along. Because every trap needs a little silence before it snaps shut. They picked my birthday for it. I should have seen it coming. The way they dressed it up as kindness. Aaron called 2 days prior, all warmth and sweetness, saying they were planning something small and special to celebrate my 71st. Just family. Just a cookout at the lake. You don't have to do a thing, she said. We've got it all covered. Her voice was syrup. I played dumb. That so? I said. You bringing cake too? Of course, she chirped. And Blake's bringing ribs. The kids are so excited. It'll be nice, Dad. Really. It wasn't a party. It was a setup. That morning I trimmed my beard, pulled on a clean flannel, and made sure every document from the trust was back in the safe. The second flash drive, the one with the photos, scanned papers, and a backup of the recorded deed, went into my sock drawer under an old revolver that hadn't seen daylight since '96. The lake was calm. Too calm. By 11 a.m., I heard tires on gravel. The first car was Blake's SUV, polished like a showroom model. Aaron was in the passenger seat, holding a grocery bag. The kids were in the back again, Ava clinging to her sketchbook, Noah stiff and silent. No smiles this time. But that wasn't what made me pause. It was the second car, a silver Lexus. Out stepped a man in a charcoal suit, shiny leather shoes, thin briefcase in hand. He didn't look like a cousin. Third vehicle was a beat-up Honda with magnets on the door. Mobile notary, on call 7 days. I stood at the top of the porch stairs, arms crossed. Blake gave me that plastic grin. Happy birthday, Walter. Aaron came up the steps, kissed my cheek. We went all out this year. Sure looks like it, I said, eyeing the lawyer. Don't mind Greg, Blake said, catching my look. He's just here to witness a few documents we wanted to run by you. Nothing urgent. Just figured, since we were all together. Of course, I said, holding back the smirk. How thoughtful. The grill was already hot. Blake had brought charcoal, tongs, and 3 racks of ribs marinated in a Ziploc like it was Sunday at the club. Aaron laid out potato salad, paper plates, and cupcakes with candles. All store-bought, all arranged like a Pinterest post. But the real show was behind the food. They set up a folding table near the back porch. Greg, the lawyer, laid out a stack of documents, neatly clipped, highlighted, tabbed. The notary, a woman in her 40s with nervous energy, hovered nearby. Noah and Ava stuck close to me the entire time. Noah helped me carry chairs. Ava sat cross-legged on the porch, doodling quietly, but her eyes kept flicking toward that table like it was radioactive. After we ate, ribs, slaw, a slice of cake I didn't ask for, Blake stood up and clapped his hands like he was about to give a toast. All right, now that we're all fed and happy, he said, we wanted to run a couple things by you, Walter. Just some simple estate stuff. You know, the responsible kind of talk. He reached for the briefcase. Greg stepped forward. We've got 3 things here, Blake said. First, a power of attorney form. It's just temporary, only while you're at the facility. Rehab, I mean. Strictly for paperwork. He said it like it was already happening. Second, an option agreement. Nothing final. Just gives a local buyer the opportunity to make an offer. No commitment. You can back out at any time. And third? I asked. He smiled. A transfer package. It pre-clears the title for movement. Again, only if you decide to sell. Totally your call. Totally my call. Like hell it was. Greg slid the stack toward me. The notary pulled out her pen. I leaned back in my chair. Well, I said, you've really got this all lined up, don't you? We just want to make sure everything's smooth, Dad, Aaron said. You've done so much for us over the years. This land's too much for you now. It's time to let it help the family. There it was. Let it help the family. Meaning, give us your legacy and don't ask for a thank you. I didn't touch the papers. Just sat there, letting them wait. Don't worry, Blake said, nudging the stack closer. There's a notary here. This is all very legal. If you have questions, Greg can walk you through it. Greg smiled like a man who already smelled his fee. I looked at the kids. Ava was frozen, her crayon still in midair. Noah gave the faintest shake of his head. I was about to speak when I heard it. A low rumble, gravel shifting, engines. Then the unmistakable sound of tires turning onto the drive. More than one. I stood. 4 pickup trucks rolled in, one after the other, all older than the lawyer's Lexus but built like tanks. The kind of trucks that smell like diesel and sweat. Windows down, music low. Every one of them had a familiar face behind the wheel. I knew these men. Old truckers. Friends I hadn't seen in years. Guys from my freight days. One of them, Jimmy Coyle, still had the scar across his eyebrow from a bar fight in Lubbock. Another, Marvin Hatch, walked with a limp worse than mine, but carried a flask and a .38 like religion. And then there was the last truck, a silver Ram with a county sheriff's magnet on the door. Off duty, but uniform visible. That was Hank. My neighbor. Blake stepped back. "What's this?" he asked. "Just some folks stopping by," I said. "Birthday surprise." They parked in a line and got out slowly, like they had all the time in the world. Not one of them spoke. They just walked up, grabbed folding chairs from the bed of Jimmy's truck, and started setting up around the table. Not around my table, around Blake's. Greg, the lawyer, was starting to look pale. The notary adjusted her clipboard like it might shield her from the cold front moving in. Blake tried to laugh. "Well, this is something." I sat back down, calm, unbothered. "Now," I said, "about those papers." The energy shifted like a cold front. 1 minute Blake was steering the moment like he owned it. Papers spread, lawyer nodding, notary at the ready, and Erin perched with a hopeful smile that couldn't hide the strain in her eyes. The next, the rhythm cracked. A tremor in the room that didn't shake the floor, but rattled the air. Because my old friends didn't come to sit in the background. They came to watch, to witness, to protect. They weren't loud. They didn't posture. They just unfolded their chairs, settled in like it was Sunday at a barbecue, and watched. The sheriff's deputy, Hank, leaned against the tailgate of his truck, arms crossed. His badge wasn't on his chest, but it was clipped to his belt. Visible. Legal. "I didn't know you were having guests," Blake said finally, voice just a little too casual. I sipped from my mug, fresh coffee brewed 10 minutes earlier, just in time, and nodded toward the paper stack. "Well, Blake, seems like you brought some guests of your own," I said. "Thought it was only fair I invite a few too." Greg, the lawyer, was tapping his pen against his notepad now, rhythm slipping. The notary had that, "I just want to get paid and go home" look that every traveling notary gets when something smells off. "I'm not sure this is an appropriate setting," Greg muttered, mostly to himself. "I agree," I said. "This isn't about my birthday at all, is it?" Blake tried the charming grin again, but it cracked at the edges. "Walter, come on," he said. "This was supposed to be a nice little celebration. Just some paperwork to make life easier. No one's trying to pressure you." "That's so?" I leaned forward, hands folded over my cane, and locked eyes with him. "Then tell me why you brought a mobile notary, an option agreement, and a pre-signed POA to a man's birthday party." He blinked. Greg stepped in, voice suddenly slicker. "Mr. Green, this is all standard precautionary procedure. Your family simply wants to be proactive in estate matters. You ever drive a rig, Greg?" He paused, caught off guard. No, I can't say that I..." "You ever change a tire in the middle of a Wyoming blizzard at 3 a.m. with diesel freezing in your gloves?" "No." "Then don't talk to me about precautionary measures. You don't know the first damn thing about what a man builds with his hands, and you sure as hell don't understand what it means to try and take it without asking." The silence that followed was thick enough to chew. Blake shifted. Erin looked like she might cry. Noah, bless him, sat beside me without flinching. Ava was curled beside Helen, who'd slipped in quietly while no one was looking. Helen, calm as ever, hands folded in her lap. No need to say a word. She was the word. Blake cleared his throat. "Dad, we've already talked to the rehab center. They've got space for you. It's just a short stay." "I'm not going." "You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking better than I have in years." Greg tried again, softer now. "Walter, if this is about suspicion, I assure you..." I raised a hand. Then, almost on cue, it came. A long, low truck horn. That old-school goosebumps down your spine kind of horn that split the air like a blade. It echoed across the lake, bounced off the trees, and settled like thunder in the clearing. The old Kenworth. My Kenworth. Caleb had arranged it with Jimmy. An old friend with enough grease under his nails to rebuild an engine blindfolded. He'd hauled the thing out of storage, cleaned it, and driven it straight to the top of the driveway for one reason only: presence. Blake turned toward the sound, confusion turning to irritation. "What the hell is that?" "My history," I said. "Rolling up to remind you who you're dealing with." The rig parked just behind the last row of trucks. Engine cut. Jimmy climbed out slow, his gray beard brushing the collar of his denim jacket. "Happy birthday, Walt," he said. "Hell of a gift," I replied. He nodded. No more words needed. The circle was complete now. These weren't just old friends. They were witnesses. Men who'd seen me sleep on concrete floors, drive through snowstorms with a busted heater, and pull double shifts to buy this very land. Blake's jaw tightened. He saw the game slipping. Aaron tried one more time. "Dad, please. We just want what's best for everyone." "No," I said. "You want what's best for you. You want a shortcut, and you almost got it." She shook her head. "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that." Greg stepped back, unsure now. He turned to Blake, who said nothing. The notary began quietly packing her briefcase. I stood. Let the cane hit the floor with a deliberate thunk. "Let me make this real clear," I said. "If anyone here thinks I'm unfit, you're welcome to call the sheriff's department and have a wellness evaluation ordered." Hank raised his eyebrows but didn't move. "No?" I said. "Didn't think so." I pointed to the paperwork. "These documents are trash. You came here thinking you were going to hand me a pen and walk away with a legacy. But I already handed it down, just not to you." Greg squinted. "What does that mean?" "It means," Helen said, speaking for the first time, "that the title you're trying to transfer no longer belongs to Walter Green." Blake turned, slow. "What?" "The land," she continued, calm as ice, "has been transferred into an irrevocable trust. Beneficiaries are Noah and Ava Green. Trustee is myself. And your little lakeside development, it's dead in the water." Blake's face dropped. Greg's lips parted. Even Aaron went pale. And that was before I added the final nail. "And by the way," I said, pulling a folded sheet from my pocket, "I've already filed a formal complaint with the sheriff's department, complete with copies of the LOI, your emails, and your map to the rehab clinic." Hank nodded. "I've seen it." No one moved. Then Blake turned, grabbed the briefcase, and stormed toward the car. "You'll regret this," he hissed as he passed. "I doubt it," I said. It was Greg who spoke first, voice shaky, clipped, lawyer slick but cracking. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No," I said, stepping forward slowly, cane tapping the wood. "There's been a long con, and unfortunately for you, the mark didn't fold." He blinked like he didn't understand. But he did. They all did. The illusion of control had cracked open like a windshield under pressure, and now the pieces were falling. I pulled a thin folder from under my chair, where I'd tucked it before they arrived, labeled it in thick Sharpie, County Records and POA, Green Trust. I placed it gently on the table beside the untouched stack of documents Blake had brought. Aaron stared at it like it might burst into flames. "Before we go any further," I said, voice low, "I'd like our friend the notary to verify something for us." I looked her way. She hesitated. Greg tried to wave her off. "That's not necessary." "It is," I interrupted. "If we're talking about transferring title, granting powers of attorney, and executing legally binding real estate documents, then she needs to know whether the person she's being asked to witness even owns the property in question." I opened the folder. Inside, a certified copy of the recorded deed transfer to the Green Family Trust, dated 4 days earlier. "Go ahead," I said, turning it toward her. straight from the county clerk's office. She scanned the page, eyes darting. Her hand instinctively reached for her bag. The place notaries keep stamps, references, validation tools. Her face changed as she read. Greg leaned in. Blake hovered behind him, jaw tightening with every second. "According to this," she said softly, "Mr. Green no longer owns the land. It's held in a trust." Greg shot her a look. "You sure?" She tapped the county seal. "It's recorded, signed, notarized, time-stamped. If this document is legitimate, then any agreements made today regarding this property would be invalid." "Not just invalid," Helen chimed in, stepping forward with the calm of a woman who'd played this game longer than any of them. "Legally meaningless. You cannot sell or encumber what you do not own." Greg started to speak again, but I cut him off. "And just to be crystal clear, let me spell out the details for everyone listening." I turned toward Blake and Aaron. "The Green Family Trust now holds legal title to the trailer, the house, the land, and all attached lakefront property. The trustee, Helen, has sole authority to make decisions regarding the property. I am not, legally speaking, the owner anymore." Blake's face twisted. "You're lying." "No," I said. "You're wishing." I pulled the second page from the folder. A notarized, durable power of attorney and healthcare proxy, both in Helen's name, both legally filed. Any attempt to act on my behalf, whether medical, financial, or legal, has to go through her, which means your whole little plan about getting me temporarily evaluated and shuffled into a facility while you sign in my name is dead on arrival." Blake opened his mouth, then shut it. His hands curled into fists. Erin didn't speak. Her eyes were locked on the paperwork, wide and wet. "You tricked us," she whispered. "No," I said. "You underestimated me. You saw an old man with a bad knee and thought you could bulldoze your way into a deal." Helen took over then, her tone sharp but surgical. "Let's talk about that deal, shall we?" She held up a printed email. I recognized it. Caleb had pulled it from the folder I'd found in the shed. "This email from Blake here," she said, "clearly states his intent to acquire POA through a forced medical stay in order to finalize a property deal, sent to one Michael Reese, acquisitions head of Clearfront Group." Greg froze. "We have the LOI as well," she continued. "It outlines the development's reliance on direct lake access via Mr. Green's parcel, marked in red ink. Closing date? 2 weeks from the day you dropped by with pizza. Which," I added, "also happens to be the exact day you plan to have me in rehab." Hank, the off-duty sheriff's deputy, shifted from the truck and stepped closer, arms still folded. "That complaint I mentioned earlier," I said, turning to Blake. "Filed, logged, with attachments, emails, draft agreements, and the full recording from today's event, captured on my security cam and backed up to the cloud." The notary stepped away from the table, quietly sliding her things into her bag. She wasn't sticking around for what came next. Greg stood straight, clearing his throat. "Well, in that case, I believe we'll excuse ourselves. Thank you for your time, Mr. Green." He turned to the table to collect the documents they'd brought. "I'd leave those," Helen said gently. "Excuse me?" "They're evidence now." Greg hesitated, then turned to Blake, who looked like someone just emptied a clip into his future. "You think this stops anything?" Blake muttered. "We'll find another way. You're not untouchable." "You're right," I said. "But this land is." He stared at me. No more grin, no more charm. Just hatred now, raw and exposed. "Let's go," Greg said. "Now." Erin moved like a ghost, her arms folded across her stomach, eyes on the floor. They left together, Greg, Blake, and Erin, walking slowly back to the Lexus like the walk itself was heavier than before. No one said a word. The car door slammed too hard. Tires skidded in gravel. Gone. Just like that. The silence afterward felt like breath returning. Noah came up beside me, said nothing, just stood there, tall and still. Ava hugged my waist without a word. Helen patted my shoulder. "They're finished," she said. "They just don't know it yet." And maybe she was right, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired, because what they tried to take wasn't just land or legal rights. It was trust. It was family. And now they'd burned that bridge so badly, no apology could rebuild it. They didn't make it off the gravel before Blake lost control. From the porch, I watched the SUV fishtail slightly on the turn, not enough to crash, just enough to show he'd punched the gas harder than he meant to. Anger makes people sloppy. He was unraveling already. The others didn't say a word. My trucker friends sat quiet in their folding chairs. Helen stood beside me with arms crossed. Hank, the off-duty deputy, moved toward the center of the yard, slow and steady, like a man who wasn't done talking. Noah tugged on my sleeve. "Should we go inside?" "No," I said. "This is still part of the story." The Lexus didn't leave. Instead, it rolled halfway down the drive, then slammed into park. Blake threw the door open and marched back toward us, red in the face, his shirt clinging to sweat. He wasn't done. He hadn't accepted it yet. "None of this is legal," he barked, pointing a trembling hand at me. "This is fraud. You tricked us. You manipulated my kids into lying." Ava flinched behind me. Noah stepped in front of her without even thinking. I stepped down off the porch, cane steady, eyes locked on Blake like he was just another broken axle on the side of a highway. Not dangerous, just annoying. "You're done," I said flatly. "It's over." "No," he spat. "This trust, this whole thing, it's a scam. You're just using it to hide assets. I'm calling a lawyer, a real one." "That right?" I said, "because the one you brought today sure didn't last long." Hank stepped up beside me, his voice calm but louder than it needed to be. "I'd think carefully about what you say next, Blake. Anything that sounds like a threat, coercion, or an attempt to pressure Mr. Green to reverse legal filings, well, that's a second report on top of the first." Blake stared at him. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," Hank said, nodding toward the recording camera mounted under my porch light. "This is a civil matter until you make it criminal. Try me." Blake's chest heaved. He looked at me, then the truckers, then the kids. Erin stood at the car now, arms folded, silent, her face pale, her eyes refusing to meet mine. She wasn't coming back from this either. "You'll regret this," he said finally. "No," I said. "I regret raising a man who thinks he can steal from his own blood." He didn't answer. Couldn't. He just turned, stormed back to the Lexus, and peeled off in a cloud of dust. Gone again. Only this time, for good. The lawyer? Burned. The deal? Dead. The notary? Already in her car, probably Googling how to avoid elder exploitation lawsuits. It was done. There was no more illusion to hold on to. Greg had taken his folder, the one with the fraudulent POA and the drafted option agreement, and left it behind on the table. Helen scooped it up. "More evidence," she muttered, slipping it into her tote bag. "This gets added to the file." Hank looked at me. "You still want that complaint to stand?" I nodded. "Absolutely." "I'll walk it in tomorrow," he said. "Sheriff's office already flagged it. They'll want a full interview. You've got a case if you want to push it." "I do," I said. "I want it on the record, start to finish." He gave a respectful nod, then looked at Noah and Ava. You two okay? Noah nodded. Ava gave a thumbs up from behind her sketch pad, then leaned into Helen's side. They weren't scared anymore. They'd seen what standing your ground looks like. I walked them back to the porch. Every step I took felt like lifting bricks off my back, not just because the threat was gone, but because I'd finally seen them for what they were. Blake and Aaron hadn't just made a bad decision. They'd revealed who they really were. And there's no going back from that. Helen stayed to help clean up. The truckers lingered for another hour, swapping stories, telling the kids about the old days of the road, cassette tapes, greasy burgers, sleeping in cabs through blizzards. They laughed, real laughter, no tension anymore. Eventually, the trucks rolled out one by one. Hank was last to go. "You ever need to file a protective order," he said, "I'll draft it myself." "Appreciate it," I told him. When it was just us again, me, Helen, Noah, and Ava, we sat on the porch and watched the sky darken. The lake glistened. The air cooled. The storm had passed. But I wasn't celebrating. I was reflecting. "You know," I said, finally breaking the silence, "I kept thinking they'd come around. That maybe they were just lost. Maybe it was money pressure or bad advice." Helen didn't say anything. But I saw it today. I felt it. This wasn't desperation. This was entitlement. They didn't think they were stealing. They thought they were owed. Noah looked at me. "You're not going to let them back in, are you?" I shook my head. They made their choice. Ava reached out, laced her fingers through mine. "You still have us," she said. Those words, they hit harder than anything else, not just because they were sweet, but because they were true. That's when I knew all of this, the pain, the planning, the traps, the trust paperwork. It hadn't just been about saving the land. It had been about saving what was left of the family that mattered. And it had worked. The scheme had collapsed. The house was still mine. But more importantly, so were they. It's been a month since the cookout. A month since the lies unraveled, since the forged papers hit the dirt, and since the Lexus kicked up gravel and didn't come back. I wake up earlier now. Not from nerves, but peace. The mornings feel different, quieter. Not just because the threat is gone, but because the noise that lived inside me, the hum of suspicion and betrayal, finally burned out. The land is mine again. Well, technically, it's Noah's and Ava's. The Green Family Trust is now fully recorded in every county database that matters. Caleb filed the last round of supporting documents 2 weeks ago. The deed is clean, the lake access is locked, and the trust is insulated like a fortress. Helen, God bless her, handles everything with the efficiency of a woman who used to audit 7-figure loans before lunch. I handed her the flash drives, all 3 of them, and she locked them in a fireproof safe she keeps beneath her kitchen floor. 1 copy stays with Caleb. 1's now part of the sheriff's official file. And 1, it's with me. I keep it in a wooden box carved by Ava herself. Just a simple square, initials burned into the lid. It sits right beside my coffee pot, under a folded cloth napkin. Every morning, I see it and remember. I didn't give up what was mine. Aaron and Blake, they haven't come back. Not once. Word around town is they're busy trying to crawl out from under the mess they made. Clearfront Group pulled out of the deal entirely. No clean title, no lake access, no development. They walked away fast and quiet. Greg, their lawyer, sent 1 last email threatening a civil suit. But after Helen responded with a 5-page breakdown of forged intent and coercion, he ghosted. Blake tried to contact Caleb directly. Left him a voicemail that started with, "Let's talk about settling this," and ended with a barely disguised threat. We submitted it to the sheriff's office. They added it to the file. Case still under review. No charges yet. But the cloud over their heads isn't going away. Especially not after the notary came forward and confirmed in writing that Blake and Aaron had framed the signing as urgent medical paperwork and rehab authorization, despite the inclusion of a full-blown real estate option agreement in the package. Helen told me the investigator called that a textbook example of attempted elder exploitation. That's what they'll carry with them now. Not just failure, but a record, a shadow, a mark. Meanwhile, the lakes never looked better. I've started patching up the old dock. It's not much, just a crooked stretch of wood with a few good boards left. But it still holds when you sit real still and don't ask too much of it. Noah helps. He's good with tools, careful, patient. Last week he asked if I'd teach him how to tie a fishing leader by hand. "You ever caught anything off this dock?" he asked, squinting into the sun. "Only my breath," I told him, "but it's worth the wait." He smiled. That kid, he's got grit. He's got his mother's intelligence, but none of her cruelty. He asks questions that matter. He listens. Ava painted a new sign for us. Green Family Trust, no trespassing. She picked a deep green paint and stenciled it herself. We nailed it to a post near the bend in the trail, right where the trees open up to the water. No more secrets. No more doubt. This land is protected now, not just legally, spiritually. The trailer? Still modest. Still creaks in the wind. Still leaks when the rain hits sideways. But it's mine. And I wake up in it every morning knowing nobody's knocking with a clipboard, trying to take what doesn't belong to them. Sometimes I sit on the porch at sunrise and remember the day it almost all slipped away. The look in Blake's eyes when he realized I wasn't the mark anymore. The way Greg fumbled his words. The silence when Helen revealed the trust. And most of all, the weight that lifted when Noah and Ava chose me over bribes, over phones, over promises of puppies and distraction. That part still chokes me up. You raise kids, hoping they'll turn out better than the ones you raised before them. And sometimes they do. Not because of what you taught them, but in spite of what they saw. I asked Helen once if I should amend the trust to include Blake and Aaron later on, years down the line. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Would you rather teach forgiveness or consequence?" I didn't answer either, because I knew she was right to ask the question. For now, the trust stays as it is, solid, untouched, shielded from the kind of hands that sign papers behind your back and call it love. We're planning a small bonfire soon, just me, the kids, Helen, and a few of the old trucker crew. Jimmy's bringing his guitar. Marvin's got a line on fresh catfish. Ava's making s'mores. No celebrations, no speeches, just quiet thanks. The kind you don't say out loud but feel in your bones. Because this place, this patch of earth by the lake, nearly got stolen. But it didn't. Because an old trucker with a bum knee, 2 brave kids, and a retired banker with a steel spine stood their ground. And now we fish, now we rebuild, now we breathe.